Hey, what's new and exciting? It's Kevin O'Shaughnessy here, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about where you can find some hidden inspiration when writing a hard rock guitar instrumental. All right, let's say you've got an idea for a tune. Maybe it's the guitar riff or a melody or something like that, but you're not sure where to take it from there. One of the things that can be really helpful to map out before you start completing the composition process is to figure out what kind of form you want to use. Now, in music, a form is the order of structures in a song, or the order of sections in a song or a piece of music. So in the case of, say, a pop song, the form might be verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Something along those lines, where each of those sections has a name and it has a particular function. Well, it's no secret that a lot of guitar players, particularly hard rock guitar players writing instrumentals, will turn to things like classical music for inspiration. Okay, one of the guys that comes to my mind when I think of classical music and hard rock, of course, is Yngwie Malmsteen. He sort of pioneered that whole neoclassical sound, and he did so using very obvious things, taking very obvious qualities of classical music, most notably the harmony and the melodic concepts, right? We all know he uses a lot of harmonic minor patterns in his writing and in his playing. But melody and harmony are not the only places you can go to find cool things for inspiration. One of the things that you can look at are things like the forms in classical music. So I got a tune called Brace Yourself. And in this tune, I was looking for kind of some sort of a unique way to borrow from classical music, and that's exactly what I did. Rather than looking at the harmony and the melody and the kinds of things that we associate instantly with the sound of classical music, I decided to look for the form. And one of the forms that always fascinated me was a form called the sonata form. And for those of you who don't know what that is, in a nutshell, it's basically three sections. There's an exposition, and in the exposition is two themes. Following the exposition is a development where those themes get manipulated and twisted around, and then there's a recap of those two themes. For those of you who don't know, a sonata basically has three parts. It has an exposition consisting of two different themes or melodies, which is followed by a development where those melodies get manipulated and twisted around, and then a recap of the original material. The form is by no means ironclad. All of the great composers who have used this form always find a way of putting their own stamp on it. They change it from piece to piece. There's plenty of room for variation in a form like this, but it's kind of a unique structure, and I thought this might be kind of fun to play around with for my tune Brace Yourself. I wouldn't necessarily call my tune a strict interpretation of sonata form. As flexible as that form is, I still don't know that this one would really qualify, but let me walk you through it, and I'll show you how it inspired me to come up with some interesting things and expand this tune in ways that I wouldn't have thought of had I stuck to something along the lines of say a verse-chorus form. So like the sonata, it is made up of two themes. Here's the first one right here. All right, so that's the first theme. And obviously you can hear that the melody is full of long notes, and the riff underneath it is this pretty heavy 16th note groove. Now let me show you the B theme. So in order to come up with the B theme, I simply reversed how the melody guitar and the rhythm guitar interacted. The 16th notes in this case are in the melody, and the long notes are in the rhythm guitar. After that, I give a sort of a restatement of the A theme. Only this time it's arranged slightly differently and harmonized, and there's a few other things going on. So you can hear that it starts up an octave, it's got some other guitars in there, and I threw in a few ad-libs too, just to give it a little bit more of a rock variation to it. All right, so the next section is what would be the development section. And in the case of a guitar instrumental, that usually means sort of the improvised solo section. In my case, I chose to do more of a composed solo, but let's listen to it, and then I'll explain some of the cool things I did to come up with it. So we said earlier that usually the development section is where the composer is going to take the A theme and the B theme and kind of mess around with them and turn them upside down and stretch them out and compress them and all of this kind of stuff. And I didn't really do that compositionally. You can tell from the solo there's mostly a lot of shredding and stuff like that going on. But what I did do was I took the melody from the A theme, that long part, that da 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 da. What I did was I dropped that down an octave and put it into the bass and rhythm guitars. And so let me clear out the solo. I'm going to play that again. See if you can hear that melody in the rhythm guitar part. Now, because the melody for the A section is so chromatic, when I moved it to the bass and made it a bass line, it created some non-functional chord progressions. So I had a lot of fun composing the solo over this instead of improvising one, because it gave me a lot more control over the relationship between the melody and the bass. By this point in the song, obviously so far it's all been pretty heavy, pretty dramatic stuff. And so I decided what the song really needed was a little bit of a breather. So I created this interlude as a retransition to get back into the what would be the recap, which is the restatement of the A and B themes. Check it out. So you can hear throughout that interlude, what I'm doing now is I'm fragmenting that A melody as if I'm drawing it back up from the bass. All you really hear about the first 3 or 4 notes, and it kind of moves around from melody to melody guitar as a way of just kind of winding it up and building up the tension so that we can get back into the recap. I decided to do the B section first. Because we hadn't heard it in a while. But I rearranged it slightly so it didn't sound exactly like it did when we heard it the first time. So kind of like when I did the A section return back in the exposition part, it's up an octave, it's got a few more embellishments, and obviously the rhythm section, the bass and the drums underneath it are also kicking really hard at this point too to give it a little extra drama. And then finally, I give the A section one more time before going into a final coda to wrap up the whole tune. So here's how the tune ends. So there you go. By taking the sonata form, something that might be a little different, something that gave me something new to experiment with and to embellish as I saw fit, I created a tune that I think sounds very different from anything else any of my other favorite artists might have put together. And you can also see that with a very small amount of music, a little bit of creative application in terms of the rhythm and the placement within the register, and you can take one riff and spin it into a much longer tune. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel and get notifications when I put up new content. Until next time, I'm Kevin O'Shaughnessy.